Section 3.3, Part B. Graph the line negative 4x plus 5y equals negative 20 by finding the intercepts. Then solve for y. Find the slope and y-intercept and compare those values to your graph. So we're first going to graph this line, negative 4x plus 5y equals negative 20. We're first going to graph it by using a t-chart. We're going to let x be 0, solve for y, let y be 0, solve for x. So if x is 0, we'll have 5y equals negative 20. So y is negative 4. If y is 0, we'll have negative 4x equals negative 20. Divide both sides by negative 4 and you get x equals 5. So that gives us 0, negative 4, and 5, 0. So our line goes through those 2 points. Now, that's the first or the second method that we learned, using the x and the y-intercept. Now we want to solve using the slope and the y-intercept. We need to solve for y. We need to get y by itself. On the left-hand side, let's first add 4x to both sides. So we get 5y equals 4x minus 20. We're still solving for y, so we need to get rid of that 5. We'll have to divide everything by 5. So that gives us y equals 4/5 x minus 4. So we want to start with our y-intercept, the point 0, negative 4. We already have that. That's the point right here. Of course, this is the same line, so it should be using the same points. We have that the slope is 4/5. So starting from that point, we want to go up 4. It's a positive slope, so it's going to be going uphill. So we want to go to the right 5. That gives us our second point, which is indeed our x-intercepts. So sure enough, whether we graph it with the second or with our third method, our x and y-intercept method, or our slope and y-intercept method, either method that we use, we can go back and use the first method. We can just choose any 3 points to figure out and then graph them, and we'll get the same line. It doesn't matter which method you use, the lines should be the same. So if you have to graph y equals 3, I'm going back to the first method where we just make a t-chart and we plot 3 points. Y is 3. Y is always 3. It does not matter what x is. We can let x be anything. How about 0, 1, and 2? So that gives us 0, 3, 1, and 3, 2, and 3. All those points line up. We have a horizontal line. Y equals 3 is horizontal. And remember that horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Graph x equals negative 4. That means, using our first method of just any 3 points to graph, x is negative 4 always. It does not matter what y is. It could be 0, 1, or 2. It doesn't matter. Negative 4, 0, negative 4, 1, negative 4, 2. All those points line up. That's a vertical line. X equals negative 4 is a vertical line. And remember, vertical lines have undefined slope. Undefined slope. The graph of y equals b is always a horizontal line. that passes through the point 0b. Notice that y equals 3 crosses the y-axis at 3. Horizontal lines are always of the form y equals some value, and it crosses the y-axis at 0, whatever that value is. X equals a is a vertical line passing through the point a, 0. So x equals -4 goes through this point, -4, 0, and our equation is x equals -4. It all works. It's a vertical line and goes through that point, a, 0. For a service call, Smith Plumbing charges a $45 trip fee and $70 per hour for labor. Express as an equation the relationship between the bill, B, and the number of hours, N, of labor. Which variable is the independent variable and which variable is the dependent variable? So our bill is going to depend upon how many hours the plumber worked. They're making $70 for each hour that they worked. Plus, they're making $45 just for showing up. Even if they show up and you say, sorry, it's fixed now, they're going to say, that's fine, we'll send you the bill. 0 hours, they're still going to charge you $45. The amount of the bill depends upon the number of hours worked. So N is the independent variable, and the bill depends upon how many hours it is. So B is the dependent variable. We want to graph this just in quadrant 1. Why just quadrant 1? Well, remember, quadrant 1 is where both variables are positive. So, can you work a negative amount of hours? No. Could your bill be negative? I don't think so. They always want you to pay them. So we want quadrant 1 where both the number of hours worked and the amount of the bill are both positive. So we need to determine how to graph this line. I want to make a T-chart for this one, but in this case, instead of X and Y, we have N in the horizontal axis, so that's our independent variable, and B is dependent. So let's think of some values. We like 0, 1, and 2. Why not? If N is 0, they don't work any hours, we already said. You still owe them $45. If N is 1, they come, they work 1 hour, you pay $70 plus 45, $115. If they have to work for 2 hours, you make you have to pay $140 plus the 45, that's $185. Does anyone want to be a plumber? It pays. So let's look at our N values on the horizontal axis. 1, 2, 3. What's a reasonable amount of time that a plumber might work? Well, from a friend, I know that if your hot water heater explodes, you need about 6 hours to fix that. So let's go up to 6. If they work 6 hours, you owe them $420 plus 45, $465, I'm sorry to say. So on the B axis, we need to go from 0 up to, let's make it 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. So our scale is going to go up by 100 each time. So if they work 0 hours, they still make $45. If they work 1 hour, they make $115. 2 hours, $185. And 6 hours, $465. Fortunately, our points all line up. I didn't really need to draw that to the left of our x-intercept because we know that we should only be in quadrant 1. What is the slope of this line? Our equation is b equals 70n plus 45. The slope is the number that is multiplied times n, 70. In terms of the plumbing bill, explain the significance of this slope. That is the plumber's hourly rate. You have to pay the plumber $70 an hour for working on your house. What is the b-intercept, which is the same thing as the y-intercept? The b-intercept is 0, 45. In terms of the plumbing bill, explain the significance of the b-intercept. It said that you have to pay a trip fee of $45. So that's the significance of that. $45 is the trip fee. It's how much you owe just for them pulling up to your door. From the graph, estimate the cost of service that lasts 2 1/2 hours. 2 1/2 hours is approximately here. Go straight up, come straight over. Boy, my drawing is not exactly wonderful, but I'm going to estimate. It looks to me about $230. We could use the equation if we wanted to know for sure. We could substitute 2 1/2 or 2.5 into the equation in place of n to find the exact value. But from my lousy graph, I would estimate about $230. Somewhere between $200 and $250. It's hard to tell. John is a vegetarian bodybuilder. John gets 60 grams of protein daily from tofu and soybeans. One serving of tofu has 10 grams of protein, and one serving of soybeans has 15 grams of protein. If T represents the number of servings of tofu and S represents the number of servings of soybeans that John eats daily to get 60 grams of protein, write an equation that relates T and S. So he's going to get 10 grams of protein for every single serving of tofu. He's going to get 15 grams for every serving of soybeans. And altogether, he needs to get 60 grams. Let's graph the equation. This equation is in general form. You have both variables on the left-hand side and a number on the right. So we have discovered that it's really easy to graph equations in general form using the intercept method. So we want to let T be 0. In other words, he doesn't eat any tofu, only soybeans. So we have 15S equals 60. Divide both sides by 15. And he's going to have to eat 4 servings of soybeans. What if he doesn't eat any soybeans? He eats only tofu. So 10T equals 60. Divide both sides by 10. And you get T equals 6. That gives us our T and our S intercepts. 0, 4, 6, 0. That's our line. We found the T and the S intercept. Explain the significance of the two intercepts in terms of this problem? We already did. If he eats 0 tofu, no tofu, means 4 servings of soybeans. And if he eats 6 servings of tofu, he doesn't have to have any soybeans. Is the slope positive or negative? That's a negative slope. It's negative. Explain the significance of the sign of the slope in this problem. It's decreasing. So as T increases, as the servings of tofu increases, he can eat less soybeans. Negative slope, as one variable goes up, the other goes down. That's all for section 3.3.